Hello everybody, welcome to the Friday evening tutorial stream. I am so sorry that I wimped out on you last night, but the entire store pretty much just completely lost focus at around 5:30 p.m. So we're all just Googling things for each other, which is fun and all, but not super conducive to actually having a sale. So tonight, we are doing acrostic ring because I'm going to milk this acrostic thing for one more tutorial. So for anybody who was part of our podcast last week or heard me expounding upon it, acrostic jewelry, that's spelled like this, is jewelry where the first letter of each gemstone spells a word. And if you want to learn more about acrostic jewelry, you can definitely catch our acrostic jewelry podcast, which I believe has dropped. I could be wrong. But you can check out, no, don't give me that. Something's gone wrong, Bull Roar.
I don't think that one's dropped yet.
Okay, well, we do have an acrostic jewelry podcast. You can catch it archived on Twitch and Facebook, and soon it will be dropping on Spotify, iTunes, and I'm not planning on kicking Heather off. She's just not in makeup because she's not supposed to have to be for
I'm
tonight.
not supposed to have to be on tonight.
So no one's trying to kick Heather off of anything.
No.
We're just giving Heather a much needed break.
I was on Wednesday.
She was. Taught a really cool tutorial.
I did.
Okay, so acrostic is jewelry where the first letter of each gemstone spells a word. So we did a whole podcast on acrostic jewelry. I did an event last week, Saturday night, which was a little cray. Mostly successful on acrostic jewelry. And like I said, I'm going to milk this podcast for one more thing, or milk this topic for one more broadcast. Not podcast, that's not what we're doing tonight. We're doing a tutorial, and I'm gonna make an acrostic wire ring. So this is basically I'm really glad that there was a sweater down there so I can get it. Sorry, let me make myself a little bit of space here. I knew that was gonna happen. Okay, nobody try and call me because my phone's on the floor. Alright, So this is the ring that I made. That was my sample. And so I'm gonna tell you the stones and let you, figure out what it spells. I've got tanzanite, apatite, chalcedony, and opal in this ring. And while everyone is processing that, I'm gonna pick out some other stones for my ring tonight. So let's see what I want to do. Alright, so yes, chalcedony is with a C, not a K. So yes, taco. Because this is what happens when Allison's making samples late at night, is she comes up with things like taco. So let's see. Of course, if I still had my thing from last week, it would tell me what I could make with all of these stones. That's what it was. Why is the only thing I can think out to spell... Oh, I do need to do one that says reader. Actually, Keiko, thank you for reminding me. But that needs to be a necklace, not a ring. Oh, wow. Enchilada. Okay, so here is the thing about acrostic jewelry, which we're going to talk about or we did talk about in the podcast, so you can hear it when it drops. But like, there were definitely a lot of backflips that they went through in the acrostic jewelry days to make things spell stuff. Like, instead of using the word pearl, they would use the word nacre so that they could use it as an N. And it gets really crazy once again we get to, W, X, Y, and Z, because there's no gemstone that's named xylophone. But, let's see. Yeah, you would think I would have figured this out already. But no, not so much. I could always just remake the taco ring if I really wanted to. Slay was one of them. Here's the other thing about making a ring, okay, that is a little bit harder than the necklace project that we did, is it's easier if all of your stones are similarly sized, like here. Otherwise, your ring gets kind of awkward. And also, if you have, because what we did with our acrostic necklace project that we did at the Dallas Public Library was we had a lot of things that were longer, that were more conducive to hanging from necklaces. When you're doing a ring, you want things that are kind of more fat, so round or rondelle. So yeah. Could totally spell die. One that just says nope. Seriously. Because that's apparently what my brain is saying right now, is nope. So, hi, Prince. Okay, I'll be right back. You guys can look at my box, and I'm going to go find some beads.
We're going to look at Allison's box.
I mean, you don't have to look at my box if you don't want to. You can change the channel. All right, so I realize that this is currently riveting stuff. Thank you, Corvus. Let's see. So whilst I am attempting to figure out my life here, let's see. Tomorrow night we decided on Zoom, correct? Fairly certain that was what the consensus was. Yay. Yay, Zoom. So Zoom's going to be at 6:30 tomorrow night, running until about 8 or 8:30, depending on how tired Heather and I are. Now I'm just spelling bad words. Gemstones, don't mind me. Do, do, do. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Because I think I can actually do that. Because I found a very expensive acrostic ring. Like $600 expensive, and it spelled the word pizza. And so I am going to make myself a pizza ring that costs less than $600. K is easy. K is kyanite. U is harder. Unikite is probably what I would settle on had I a choice to make, but what the choice that was made for the event was to just not have any words that use the letter U, I think. You're gonna need a U. Okay, stick with Unikite. Unikite's a good one. Okay, so I've got pizza. So what I have chosen to make pizza with, don't eat the pizza that I'm making right now. It's for wearing, not for eating. So that's fair. Well, one can. So peridot, iolite, and we're gonna see how I work this because I've got 2 zircons and then an amethyst. So I might do something kind of creative at the end of the ring. And I'm gonna put these in a little dishy dish so that they don't run away because they might. So sorry, now that I've taken up 15 minutes of the tutorial with that, let's actually start to make this ring. So we are gonna need some 22 gauge wire. I'm gonna be using 22 gauge bronze. You could also use 20. And then I'm gonna need some 26 gauge wire. That is because a lot of beads don't fit 22 gauge wire, so when you're already limited by the idea of making an acrostic ring, you don't want to limit yourself further by picking a wire that is too thick for your beads. Like, you just don't do it. It's a real pain in the ass. So there are a couple ways you can do this. There's the way that I did it, and then there's the other way. All right, I'm going to do it the other way. Okay, so I'm going to take my beads. Polite 4-letter words. Taco. Taco is a very polite 4-letter word.
That's what I said.
You're both right. Everyone's right. Except for me, because I have no tools. At least those will be easy to find. Maybe. Yes. And I knocked over my trash can. Yay, me. Okay. Sit there. Alright, so yes, it would absolutely. So Keiko just asked a really good question. Would this work with chips if they were similarly sized? Yes. This is really going to work with anything as long as it is, as long as your pieces are similarly sized and as long as, your word doesn't take up more space than your finger has. Because that's the other thing, and that's one of the reasons why I was trying to stay away from longer beads like we used in the pendant class, because again, at some point it's gonna get too long for your finger. But it's a fun, even if you're not trying to do an acrostic ring, which I probably should have just done a regular wire wrapped ring at this point. This is a fun technique because it's I don't think I've done one exactly like this before, where you're combining the 26 and the 22, so it gives you a much wider variety of beads that you can use. So I've cut myself about two 12-inch pieces of 22 gauge wire, and again I'm using bronze tonight, and then I just can cut myself 1 foot of my 26 gauge wire. That aside, make sure that I have my ring mandrel handy because I'm going to need that to form my ring. And I'm going to take my beads and I'm going to string them onto my 26 gauge wire. So for the next minute or two, I'm going to wish I had 3 hands because I'm already dropping things. Just going to cut myself another piece of wire. So how's everybody doing? We missed you last night, but again, none of us could focus. There was no focus happening yesterday. Another piece of wire. Try not to drop it on the floor. Okay, so back to where I was a second ago. I'm going to take my beads and I'm going to string them onto my wire. Now remember, you're trying to spell, not sell. You're trying to spell something. So I agree. I think it totally counts as cold fruit soup. But anyway, the order you put these on in matters because they are supposed to spell a word. And I think I'm going to try and do something interesting and decorative with the last 3 because they're so much smaller. So I don't quite know how that's going to work in my construction. I think I want to do something like swirly. Zircon, or cubic zirconium, is what I used for the Z. So I've got peridot, iolite, double zircon, and then an amethyst at the end. So I think, yeah, there we go. So I'm going to go with this pattern, just because my zircons are so much smaller than everything else. So I've got my P and my I, and then my double Z and my A, and I'm going to then straighten that iolite, or sorry, the one after the amethyst out, so that I've got essentially a line, at least as much as I can. Now I'm going to take that line of beads that's on my 26 gauge, and I'm going to put my 20 gauge on either side of it. And what's going to happen is my 20 gauge is going to kind of go underneath, or 22 gauge, sorry, it's going to kind of go underneath my beads, and that's totally fine. Because it'll all straighten itself out, or not, in a minute. Okay, so now I've got 3 pieces of wire in my hand. I've got my 22 gauge, again, which are currently riding under my beads, and I've got my 26 gauge that's actually holding my beads. Now, again, this is where you're going to wish you had a third hand that would just extend from your middle and hold your mandrel for you. Now, if you're not doing this on a stream where you have to be under a camera, you can totally take a bench vise and clamp your mandrel into your bench vise. That's what real jewelers do. And then you do actually have 2 hands because your bench vise is holding your mandrel. However, again, since I am on stream, I am going amateur style. Yes, it's amateur hour on the Beading Dream stream. Who's surprised? Nobody's surprised. All right, so I picked my size. I decided to go for a size 7, which is right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of my wires around and cross them underneath my mandrel. And bear with me for a second. I'm just going to pull this up here and show you how that looks once I actually do it. Okay, so what I've done is I've pulled my wires around my mandrel, I've crossed them underneath, and I'm going to go back to the top. I'm going to take one grouping above, one grouping below, and I'm going to twist them around my grouping in the center. So a couple of things that you need to think about here that are related to the fact that I'm struggling. Number one is you want to make sure you keep it at the right size. This is where you lock in the size, and if you let it slip up or down, you're going to wind up with a ring that is drastically different size than what you wanted. Secondly, and if you let go of it for even a second, it is going to spring up and change sizes on you. Secondly, you don't want to kind of mess up your letters here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the group of wires and I'm going to curl it around my letters. But what I want to, letters aka beads, but I want to try not to let it do what it just did. Did you see how it kind of popped that peridot up? So I'm going to hold it, and what I'm trying to do, hey, what I'm trying to do here, mister, is make a frame for my letters. So when you get frustrated and you let everything go, this is what happens. This is not a desirable outcome. We do not want this. Just bear with me for a second while I get everything, back on track in the sense of it not exploding. Because nobody likes an exploding acrostic ring. I mean, I don't think anybody likes exploding rings at all, except for possibly cartoon characters. Maybe clowns. Dang it. Okay, finally. Okay, so I finally succeeded in making a frame for my beads with my wire. So now I can take this off the mandrel and I can anchor my wire down. So I can just take this and I'm going to just treat all 3 wires as one, cut them nice and short, and then I can go through the center of my ring and make sure you got all 3 of them, which I do, and just wrap that around one time nice and tight. Now, when you're making rings, you want to make sure that you don't, first of all, I'm just going to double check my size, which I'm still good at a 7. You want to make sure that you don't tuck these in a way that is going to poke or hurt in some other fashion the wearer of the ring. So I find that the safest place to finish your ends is just down around the outside of your ring. So I just cut those off nice and short, and I'm going to press them down with my chain nose. And ideally you want to press them down so you can't feel any rough spots. Now I want to do a little bit of decoration and anchoring with my stones. So on my second side, I'm going to keep out my 26, and I'm going to finish off my 22. Again, flip it through. Use your chain nose to pull it around nice and tight. Okay, if it's not tight, then your whole ring is just going to be a big, wobbly, nasty thing that is not going to be wearable. All right, trim. Yes, this one did turn out like a little bird's nest, probably because of the different sized stones, but I still think I like it. It's fun. So now I'm just going to take my 26 and I'm going to do just a little bit of kind of weaving of going down through and then up to anchor it, and then around. So see how I'm just going kind of in between these stones here so that I can sort of just tack them down, because otherwise it's going to, even though it's going to be less, it's going to turn out less like a bird nest and more like, you know, a runaway, I don't even know what. But, and that goes down. Wait. Okay, and so that's my anchoring loop right there, so I'm going to give that a good firm tug. And again, I want it to go down between my first two beads. Just pull on the end of it. Runaway pizza, right? Nobody wants a runaway pizza. They do not. Do you want to make sure you can see the whole pizza though? There we go. All right, and then I'm going to take up and down, and I'm just going to anchor between my iolite and my double ZA. Because that's what puts the za in pizza. Har, har, har. So again, I'm just taking my 26, and you want to do this with your 26, not your 22, because your 26 is much more malleable. If you tried to do this with your 22, you'd have an extremely hard time of wrapping it. All right, so we're going to wrap it in between here, and then I can just take this around with my other anchored wires, like so. I'm going to real quick resize it, because see how I've kind of lost some of my band wires there. But if you just take it on your mandrel and you sort of press it down and wiggle it, you can usually get those wires to flatten back out and make more of an actual, you know, ring shape. And then I'm going to take this last 26 gauge wire. I'm going to give it one more wrap, and then I'm just going to trim it and press it right down in there. And again, you want to make sure that you don't have any ends that are going to stab yourself or anyone else. So that is my pizza ring. I also kind of like that the little bird nesty part looks sort of like a pizza pie. So Pizza. So that spells pizza, one of my favorite foods when it's gluten-free, because I ordered pizza the other day and got gluten-free pizza. And it was awful the rest of the day was terrible. The pizza was good, but the rest of the day was miserable and awful. So yeah, so that's my acrostic ring. So I promise no more acrostic jewelry after today. We are going to move on to something else, but that is our tutorial. It's a pretty easy wire ring. You can do this with obviously other stones that are not spelling something. You can do this with a single stone and use this to make kind of a halo around the stone. That's a really fun way to do this. It's easier if you just use a single stone when you're trying to string them together like this. That is where it gets a little awkward. But just as far as wire goes, like I started out once again with 2 feet of 22 gauge in 2 pieces and 1 foot of 26 gauge, and I used almost all of that wire. Like these little bits are all that I have left. So don't underestimate when you're doing something like this how much wire you're going to need, because don't forget you're going to have to be going around the band at least twice to make something that's sturdy, and then you're going to need to be going around the stones as well. And remember, anytime that you're going in a circle, I think I'm just going to put the pizza ring on my engagement finger, because I could definitely go for being engaged to pizza. Anytime you're going in a circle, it takes more wire than you think it's going to. Usually about triple the amount, surprisingly, or not. Okay, so that's it. That was my acrostic ring tutorial. Maybe not my best tutorial ever, but thanks everyone so much for hanging out with me this afternoon, evening. It's evening where I am. It's afternoon where some of you are. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. And don't forget, we'll be on Zoom tomorrow night, so everyone can check on Discord and get that Zoom link. It's the same one as always. If you're not on our Discord, go ahead and type Discord in the Twitch chat, and that will get you into our Discord. There is a channel for Zoom. It's got the meeting info on there, and we will Hee hee. Yay. Awesome. All right. So that's it for us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow on Zoom. Heather and I will both be on working on projects. I will need to figure out what the heck I'm teaching next week so I can work on that and probably 17 other things at the same time. So I'm going to have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.